I'm Author Function,
I'm Galvin.
and this is the Secret Boss podcast where we talk about the best auteurs in gaming, whether they deserve that title or not. And today we are talking about Steven Spielberg, who I think is and will always be the most famous video game director we will ever cover on this podcast, even though people do not know him for directing video games.
You know, video games, they were not a legitimate medium until Steven Spielberg came in. You know, they finally made it art. Congratulations.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is that was part of the narrative about Steven Spielberg when he was directing new video games. Like, oh, okay, video games are legitimate now. We have Steven Spielberg making a video game. And then it comes out and it's Blox. He makes Blox. It's the funniest thing. The video game industry really wanted that cred from the film industry for such a long time. And when Steven Spielberg comes along, he's like, perfect match. He's the big blockbuster director. Everybody loves him. He's a big gamer. He's been playing video games for decades. He comes onto the scene and he's immediately forgotten. Nobody cares about Steven Spielberg's games. And I find that incredible. Like, how does that happen?
Hey, you know, geniuses are sometimes underappreciated when they first start out. You know, people in centuries from now will be looking back on this and being like, how could we have missed all the signs? He was perfect.
We're going to be looking back on Blox and say, you know what? Spielberg really did perfect the medium.
The timeline is just going to be reduced. There's not going to be Super Mario Brothers. It's just going to be the first game that was made. The first significant game that was made was Blox. That's it.
Exactly.
So I only play like higher artistic mediums like gaming. So I just want to ask, who is Steven Spielberg? I've never heard of it before.
Well, whoever you are, this strange amalgam of Galvin that never watches movies. Steven Spielberg is a film director. He still exists. And he became very famous with his big blockbuster hits. He made Jaws, which is often considered to be the first blockbuster, this big, exciting genre movie. And he made a few other ones you may have heard of, like E.T. and Indiana Jones. And a lot of these movies were really populist movies that appealed to a wide audience. These movies were very sentimental in a way that you can see in a lot of Hollywood movies, but they also kind of focused on individual aspects that people could easily relate to. He used to focus a lot on family and romance and authenticity. These are all big major themes that Spielberg is working with, but he combines it with a lot of genre fun. He does these great big spectacle films. Spielberg is like the populist blockbuster director. He is honestly, I consider, the most influential living director, because of just how much he's influenced genre film by focusing on those kind of intimate moments and having really high melodrama added to the format. Basically, every genre movie, I think, has some kind of influence from Spielberg on a large blockbuster scale, at least. I think that Spielberg is also a director that you have opinions about, Galvin.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about Spielberg, I guess. I don't think this is especially that contrarian if you follow like cinephile circles, but I guess, I mean, if you walked up to somebody who just liked movies and didn't go into them that like as a hobby, and then you just talk to them about what I think about Spielberg, I feel like it would just really weird them out. I feel like I hear a lot of people now talk about how Spielberg ruined the film industry. That's in their words, not mine. Because in some ways he kind of defined the modern like economic model for Hollywood. He invented, or he didn't invent like he came up with it, but Jaws was such a big deal in the 1970s that it helped invent the idea of the blockbuster. The blockbuster being this huge movie event that was advertised, you know, throughout TV, throughout all sorts of different billboards, that was like hyped up as its own event, to the point where it's basically our model now for what we have as movies. Every animated movie that you see that has commercials on TV or billboards or things that, or like merchandising lines, that's from Spielberg in some way. That, and a combination of that with like what happened with Star Wars around the same time with George Lucas and all that stuff. But since they're part of the same team or part of the same generation, I think they could both be lumped into the same thing. But I think a lot of people talk about how Spielberg is a very sentimental person, and I agree, there is a lot of sentiment there. I also have a lot of other thoughts about him. If you watch movies like The Fabelmans or Artificial Intelligence, which is just one of my favorite movies of all time, you'll see that he is, I think, much more sadistic than a lot of people give him credit for, and has a lot of other feelings and a lot of conflicting feelings that make me both respect him as a filmmaker and also feel very, very weird about him as a person. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think he has a way of promoting maybe some of the most rotten thoughts in the sweetest ways. And that's what makes him the most interesting to me. In that that contrast between the ugliness of some of his ideas and how he directs some of his movies. Let's just go down the line and I'll mention these later. Let's go into his games first.
So Spielberg, after making lots of money, directing all these very famous movies, helps make his own production company, DreamWorks. And in DreamWorks, there is a lot of different divisions. They make movies, of course, but they also started to make some interactive experiences, some video games. And one of these games, at the very earliest, was Steven Spielberg's director's chair in 1996. And this is such a wonderfully interesting game because in this game you are basically a new film director and Steven Spielberg is showing you the ropes. You're making this movie with Spielberg, he's producing and everything, and you're basically going across every single aspect of the film producing process, and you're making your own movie starring Jennifer Aniston and Quentin Tarantino and for some reason Penn and Teller. And this game, it is the narrative behind it is that you are making your own movie, but really what is happening is that you can't really make your own movie in the same exact way within a video game. So it is sort of giving you predefined steps and predefined footage for basically every element of the film producing process, except importantly the editing. The editing is a lot more freeform, but you don't get a lot of control. You're not really being a director. I think the very start of this game, you have to write the script, right? And you're doing this with some screenwriters. And the way that this works out within the game is you have an outline of different scenes you want to have in the movie that has already been given to you. And you have to sort of drag each of these scenes to the screenwriters and have them write the movie. And I thought there was going to be some like element of choice to this. Like, oh, you have to choose what scenes are most important to the movie and figuring out, okay, what do I want to keep? What scenes are going to be expensive to shoot? But no, you just have to give all of these scenes to the screenwriters and they'll write the movie and you're just kind of watching them as they do it, which I like to imagine is how Spielberg does it. He just sits in his chair and watches as the screenwriters write out the whole movie for him, just staring him down, just like this game.
Speaking of Spielberg not doing anything, the game is called Steven Spielberg's Director's Chair. And he walks in at the beginning of the game and is like, "Hi, I'm Steven Spielberg. Feel free to take a tour of the studio lot, and I'll walk you step by step through this movie." I'm pretty sure he didn't look at footage of this game for like more than a total of like 8 hours. I'm not sure he even like worked on this game at all. It's
No,
just he shows up for like maybe like 5 minutes of combined screen time and he put his name on it.
okay, so the thing is, he actually did film all the scenes that are in the game. So basically, he
Oh,
is filming the footage that is accessible in the game for you. But also, I'm not sure if he is like a creative lead for this game specifically because the credits in this game are quite vague. They don't really say who is doing everything, but it does have like a bit of a created by Steven Spielberg at the top of it. So how much actual involvement he has outside of filming these scenes is fairly questionable. I can't imagine he's doing anything in depth at this period, but he is his name is on top of the thing, so I'm going to be counting this project for at least a little bit.
I honestly don't even believe he filmed the scenes. It doesn't look, I don't know. It's not, he was not putting his A game in it. Let's just say that.
Yes, these scenes are just absolute garbage, and like part of it is you need to have like not really standout scenes because people are going to be editing it together, but they don't really have a lot of personality or interest to them, especially at the beginning of the game. Beginning of the game, only have access to wide shots for whatever reason. You're not getting any close-ups, which is very Spielbergian. But eventually, throughout the game, you unlock more. I never played that far because this game is awful. I hate it so
Oh yeah,
much.
yeah. When you finish the movie and it comes out, everyone's like, "Oh, it's a rip-roaring success." And he's like, "Okay, time for you to work on your next movie." It's the same fucking movie, but with like two more actors,
You have to make the same movie over and over again.
which does say a lot about how Spielberg conceives Hollywood and filmmaking. But you know,
There's also a, like, compilation of all the scenes, done by Molly Industria for whatever reason. Feels very out of Molly Industria's wheelhouse, but basically, it's like combining all this footage and turning it into a choose your own adventure game where you're basically just watching a movie and picking what choices are going to be happening. Usually within this game, it would be different choices that you as the director are making. But in this adaptation, which is how most people are interacting with this game now, you're basically just watching a movie that Steven Spielberg has kind of made and then edited by Molly Industria. It's kind of a unique experience. It definitely feels a lot more like a real movie, but it's still not good. It feels a lot more like something is being directed here, that there is some kind of vision behind it. But when it's all separated out into this game using the pre-made footage, is less directing a movie and more like editing a film that you have zero context on.
And also likely probably don't care about. Um,
Exactly.
un- unless you like watching Quentin Tarantino kiss Jennifer Connelly for like 15 seconds straight. That was such a long kiss. Did you notice that? It's just everyone's just awkwardly standing there, and he's just like standing there making out with her.
Yeah, I
Anyways,
don't know what is happening with these actors because they're not they're hamming it up, but they're also not funny or anything. They're just kind of like big expressions of emotion, and that's about it. I don't
and
know what's happening in it.
there are like all these long awkward pauses, and then they later tell you that it's, oh, maybe it's because you need to fill it in with music or sound effects. And then you get to the sound effects room and it's like splash a bucket of water. And it's like nothing like that happens in the movie. There's no place where it would have fit in that movie at all. Great movie. Thank you.
And the
Thank you,
music is not
Spielberg.
exactly John Williams either. It's just like yakety sax or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
weird music choices in this game. And one thing I thought was interesting is that it's like the last possible moment that there's physical editing. In this game, you're not like using a virtual editor like
Yeah.
digital editing is done now. You're actually taking scissors and cutting these film reels. And nobody does that anymore. Just a few years after 1996, that'd be almost completely abandoned on movie sets because it's just so inconvenient. I just find it really funny and cute in this game. Anyway, that's kind of all I have to say on Steven Spielberg's director's chair. Again, I don't think he had a ton of involvement on it, but it's such a strange game that I needed to talk about it.
I'm kind of insulted you even put this game in the list because I had to play it, and he didn't even fucking like work on it. He showed up for like a day and said, "Here's what filmmaking is about," and then he left.
Okay. So after that, Spielberg and his team went on to make Medal of Honor, which is probably his most noteworthy game. And by his most noteworthy, I mean he gets a created by credit. And based on all the interviews I've seen, he was never really in the room when the game was being made, but he did lots of telephone calls. He led the overall direction for how the game is going and the basic concept for the game, but not a lot of direct involvement. Medal of Honor is a famous first person shooter series, and we're talking about this one specific game, the first game for the PlayStation, which is basically a fairly basic World War II shooter. It's level based. You're basically moving across a lot of different missions the game gives you. There gives you a little bit of backstory to what this mission is, and then you shoot all the Nazis in all these hallways, basically, one by one. And then you do that, and the level is over. And yeah, it's a pretty simple early first person shooter. I'd heard a lot about Medal of Honor before this, and I heard some background about how Spielberg was really wanting to make a follow up game to Saving Private Ryan, like adding that work to the medium of video games. He wanted to make a serious World War II game that wasn't just about shooting, it was about educating people. So they really understand what World War II was about. And that basically amounts to two or three PowerPoint slides about history a little bit, and then you just go straight into a shooting game where you just kill Nazis. And it was a lot of whiplash between my expectations and what the game actually was.
See, I didn't do much research into this episode. You definitely did more research than me as to what Spielberg's intentions was. I saw it a completely different way. I think there's a lot of Spielberg in this
Oh,
game, actually, just not in the way that seems to be what was written in that interview or whatever you read. From what I heard, Spielberg was working on Saving Private Ryan, and he was doing research into that movie when he got the idea to make this game, which means that from what I heard,
right.
what Spielberg was making wasn't necessarily like a continuation of Saving Private Ryan, but something related to World War II, which is what he was researching. And that makes a lot of sense because to me, this is just my impression talking here. This to me feels like what the United States would have made if PlayStation games existed in the era of World War II and they were making like propaganda. This is like in the vein of American propaganda. I'm being serious here, fully serious. This is meant to be like
I agree.
a
I
rip
agree.
roaring patriotic like American game where the only goal is to shoot Nazis without thinking about it, and it's like all about how great America is. There's so many animations here. If you look at this game, the thing that has the most care put into it, more than the controls of the game, are the death animations of the Nazis as they fall over and clutch and go, oh my god, and they fall to the floor and stuff like that. It's such like, it didn't remind me of Saving Private Ryan. It reminded me of Indiana Jones and how that took a kind of like
Yes.
sadistic approach to taking down like ethnic enemies and stuff like that. That's what I was thinking at the whole time. Also, if you leave, I don't know if you did this, but if you leave the game idle enough on the title screen, it cuts to cartoonish Looney Tunes German propaganda cartoons about killing Americans and stuff
What?
like that. It's like, I don't know even know how to describe it, but it's like they're talking in like exaggerated German accents, and it's all like German subtitles, and it's like, here's how to kill the filthy American and stuff like that. It's like Indiana Jones humor, basically. That's what I was thinking of the entire time. So I wouldn't say this was
Fascinating. Oh my
like,
god.
I didn't even think about classifying this as educational or anything like that. This was the complete opposite in my case.
Yeah, it's supposed to be more serious. They hired like some drill instructor on the game as well to like try and make things as
I
accurate as
read about
possible.
this. Yeah.
And
I read that he
that's
just
not reflected in the game.
I read that one of the soldiers they were like researching just walked on and was like, "This is a terrible idea. Why are you doing this?" Just walked. That was his only feedback. But yeah.
Because it's basically a one-man army.
Oh
Your player
yeah.
character is just mowing people down by himself. And like Saving Private Ryan is a movie that is arguably an anti-war movie. There are scenes where people die in horrible ways, and there is a lot of suffering. It's still very debatable on how anti-war it actually is, because it's still a very pro good thing that we're doing this war and everything. But in this game, there is none of that. It is just like, yeah, mow them all down. You're invincible, dude. You can do it. Keep going. It's so funny to me. This was like, if we take the Spielberg contribution seriously, he's like following up Saving Private Ryan with whatever this is. Is like, yeah, this is really all I really cared about. I just cared about killing the Nazis. That's it.
Yeah. And this to me ties into my thesis that like Spielberg is kind of a sadist, or well, not kind of. I think he's very much a sadist. I mean, even in Saving Private Ryan, which is an anti-war movie, that whole 20-minute sequence that opens it, spoilers, where everybody is just shot to pieces, it plays kind of like a comedy in that a lot of scenes are just like set up and punchline, and the punchline is they're all dying. I still remember this one scene. I'm sorry, this is just me describing Spielberg movies to you now, but there's a scene in the first 20 minutes where a guy gets shot while a huge gunfight's going on, and he's like, "Oh, I survived," and everyone's like, "He's so lucky," and then he immediately gets headshot and falls to the floor dead. That's a joke. That's a joke about Americans being murdered at the beginning of the anti-war movie. There's another where I think a bunch of Algerian people are speaking Algerian and they shoot them because they don't understand their language, and then one guy says what they say, and the other guy says, well, they said oink oink because they thought they were Germans, and that's another joke in the first 20 minutes of the movie. It's a sadistic joke, but it's just a joke about war, about how much Spielberg loves death, basically. And this kind of plays into, I mean, basically all of this Indiana Jones movies, but also this game. This to me is just like him being like, I know you guys enjoy video games, and video games don't necessarily have to have a plot. So here's me providing you with like the basis level of a plot to get to what I really care about, which is, killing people. I don't think they even put that much thought into the controls. I didn't like this game, by the way. That may be my bias leaking into this.
I also didn't like it. And that's not to say that like this was so primitive that they couldn't have a story in their first-person shooter. Half-Life had just come out. There was Marathon and System Shock before it. All these like big story-based first-person shooters.
But they didn't try. Come on. They didn't try with this one, right? You can say that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they tried.
I don't think so. It's basically get from point A to point B and kill all the Nazis.
The most plot they give you is like a paragraph at the beginning, and that looks like it was edited in like by like a 7-year-old in SlideShare. And you just press play and you're instantly in the mission.
Spielberg has story credit on this one, and I think he kind of phoned this one in as well. I can't imagine how much work he put into it. So, after Medal of Honor, when Spielberg has been quote unquote, making video games for a while, he made a deal with EA Games. And in this deal, he was going to be directing three different video games. And this would be probably his biggest involvement with video games yet. He would have his own ideas, his own creative control. It was kind of a big deal. People were really excited about Steven Spielberg making video games. Like I said, he's a big name director. He's kind of giving legitimacy to video games. And people really wanted to see how that could be adapted. One of the biggest announcements was Project LMNO. It was a big cinematic first person quote unquote shooter. You didn't have a gun, but it was same basic concept where you were taking in an alien that was hiding from the government, and you would be having to protect this alien from all the people that are trying to get to it, including the government, and you would be bonding with her and hiding her. And it was basically E.T., which is the comparison everyone made, and also never came out. It was canceled pretty quickly, but Spielberg had two other games he was going to have to make. And the first of these games was Boom Blox, which is completely in the opposite direction. This is not like a Spielberg movie put to a game. It was instead a Wii game
Well, it
where
was a first-person shooter. It was a first-person shooter.
oh yes, Boom Blox is a first-person shooter in a way because uh in one of the modes in Boom Blox, which is basically Jenga, you can throw a ball to knock down some blocks, and some of these blocks are animals, and there's this whole meta aspect to this game with a storyline where I don't know, you're just helping out these animals in various ways by doing all these Jenga challenges. I don't know. It's supposed to be really novel with the motion controls and everything because you have the Wii remote and you can pull all these blocks, you can move them around with the Wii remote. It's all cool. It's really nice. And honestly, do you have anything to say about Boom Blocks? Is there anything noteworthy about it?
I do, honestly. I have a take on it. Even though,
Okay,
let's
give me
be
two.
clear here, I didn't play it. I didn't play Boom Blox, either of the Boom Blox games, because I couldn't figure out how to get it set up on my Wii emulator for my mouse to work or my controllers to work, so I didn't play it. I watched an 8-hour long playthrough of it, which is arguably the same thing. It's like watching a movie, which you can say, was more authentic to Spielberg's vision than actually playing it.
Going to theaters to watch Boom Blocks long play part one.
Blank Check didn't do an episode on that. What's up with them? They're not real Spielberg heads. They didn't do a commentary on their Patreon where they watched all 8 hours of Boom Blocks and talked over it.
Okay, they did do an episode on Spielberg's video games, but one, they
Oh, they
did the
did?
Molly Industrial version of Steven Spielberg's director's chair, and they didn't really talk very much about Boom Blocks, which, like, understandable, but come on.
What a bunch of fake bitches. Jesus Christ. I could do their job so much better than they can. Anyways.
That's why we're number one, baby.
For one thing, Spielberg brought in surprisingly big guns for this game that he didn't with Medal of Honor. I feel like that's very weird. He brought in Mark Mothersbaugh for the soundtrack. Did you notice this? Mark Mothersbaugh, who
I
did
did not.
a bunch of Nickelodeon music, a bunch of great soundtracks for a bunch of great movies. You brought him in to do the soundtrack for Boom Blocks. Let's talk about the production history. Spielberg pitched this game and supervised its production, and his main pitch was, I just wanted a game I could play with my family because they were playing a lot of games together or kind of separately, but he didn't really like violent games. I mean, he was playing Call of Duty, but he didn't want to encourage that kind of behavior by having his kids play that. There's one interview I read earlier while doing research for this, where he says, we are a quote unquote politically correct household, so we don't play games like Call of Duty. And I just thought that was a very interesting way to put it. But
really? That was a quote he had? Because
yes.
According to his son, Spielberg plays a lot of Call of Duty.
No. The thing is, he did play Call of Duty, but he specifically states in one interview that he had to sneak out of the house to play it because he didn't want to encourage his kids to that kind of behavior. Should also note while I'm talking about the games that Spielberg played that he had a Bubble Bobble cabinet in his studio while he was editing. And if that doesn't convince you that Spielberg was a sadomasochist, I don't know what does. I mean, he likes Bubble Bobble. That's crazy. That's a demented mind right there.
Are you a Bubble Bobble hater? Who's a Bubble Bobble
It's a
hater?
sadomasochistic game. You have to be a masochist to go play it. It sucks. If you don't play with two players, you don't get the true ending. And there's like 100 levels and all of them are designed to hurt you. I'm not the only person who has this opinion, trust me. Anyways, Boom Blocks. It's a game that I think ties into how Spielberg sets up his shots, because a thing about Spielberg that a lot of people talk about in filmmaking is that he doesn't have a shot list, or he often doesn't have a shot list. He's one of the few in filmmaking. You often have a shot list, which is a preordained like series of shots that you make, usually from the storyboard, that shows what you're going to shoot in a given schedule for a specific day. And what Spielberg has done over the years is, well, since he's one of the most popular directors of all time, he often goes into his movies and is given the ability to not use a shot list. He'll just walk in and be like, I want to try doing this shot from this angle or this shot from this angle, and they kind of work it out on the fly as he's making as he's making the movie. And I think that ties into Boombox a lot because, I mean, initially going into it, I thought, oh, it's just a game where you throw balls at blocks. But it's also a game where you can move the camera wherever you want and then throw the balls at the blocks, which I thought was very interesting. I haven't seen any other game where you knock down blocks do something like that before. And I feel like that's because of how Spielberg setting up. And that's how Spielberg sets up his shots. It's about him showing to other people the value of like finding the right angle for something, or like finding the right trajectory for something. It's like him teaching the audience how to frame things with video games. And I think that's so cool. Even if he didn't do it intentionally, the fact that he factors in the camera movement as part of the video game, like of the strategy of playing the game, is something that I think only a filmmaker could do. And I think that's so cool.
Are you
I also want to
kidding?
say this kind.
I can't tell. Is this a
What?
joke? What?
No, I'm not kidding. I
don't.
genuinely believe this.
It's camera controls. You move the camera in basically every game in 3D.
What game has you move? No, because it's first person throwing a ball at blocks and the camera moves with you. What game lets you throw blocks at balls, or lets you throw balls at blocks and move the camera around to get a trajectory? You can throw from like above the structure down at the structure. I've never seen any other game do that. I'm serious. I can't think of one.
I mean, I can't think of one specifically with balls and blocks, but I can't think of a lot of games with balls and blocks. I don't know. Whatever.
It's really
I
not
think
that
that's just
absurd. I'm genuinely not doing this to be like contrarian or to do a bit. I think this is a valid opinion to have.
Okay, I'm just gonna have to accept it then. I can't think of a counter example, so you're good. You win.
Okay. Another thing I want to bring up is The Adventures of Tintin, which is probably one of my favorite Spielberg movies. I just bring that up personally, but I think maybe it's because I've watched that movie so many times that I like talking about it. The Adventures of Tintin is his only animated film so far. I don't think he's going to make another one. They're probably never going to make a sequel. But what's interesting about it is that he decided not to do 2D animation. It was basically 3D animation with rotoscoping, or not rotoscoping, but with motion capture. They had a bunch of real life actors running around and doing things. But what was interesting was that he used Peter Jackson's specific version of developed 3D animation technology, in that he can move the camera basically whenever he wanted. He could basically just go through windows and like, I really believe this. If you watch the movie, it does feel a lot like no clipping. Like turning on no clip in Gary's Mod and going through all the different environments and stuff like that. And I think that borrows from the language of video games. And I think that ties back into Boom Blocks with how you can move around the camera and that kind of freedom. Okay, I can see that I'm losing you now, so let's just move on.
Kind of. Okay, if we take away the balls and blocks thing, if we were playing a Jenga game, but if you played those Jenga games, you move around the camera in the same way. So
No, but
I don't know.
the point is that you're throwing the object of the game is that you throw balls at blocks. It matters what vantage point you're coming from. In Jenga, it doesn't matter what vantage point you're coming from. When you're throwing, like when you're talking about like Angry Birds, it doesn't allow you to move the slingshot wherever you want and then fire it. You have to fire it from one fixed position. But this game is allowing it so that you can go in like basically a 360, not a 360, like a 180 degree radius. And you can basically fire wherever you want.
Okay.
That's fucking crazy. I don't know. That's like way too much power that, like, if you put it in the hands of a regular game developer, they wouldn't give you that power. That would be too much because it would allow the player to cheat in too many ways. But here, I don't know. It's a lot.
I think that might be why it's called Boom Blocks, because Spielberg is giving you power over blocking.
Sure. That's definitely yeah. I also want to point out that it's funny that he made a game that was just about spectacle, explosions, and just like objects flying everywhere. That's another part of Spielberg that's in this game.
Right. I kind of want to make the argument that Spielberg, as a filmmaker, is really focused on these individual moments of emotion, very much the spectacle and affect, and just having the power of feeling when you're watching something. And I kind of want to make the argument that when people wanted him to translate his movies into video games, they wanted him to make something cinematic, lots of cutscenes and things. Whereas Spielberg wanted to translate that feeling, the feeling of hitting something and being excited about it and making powerful emotions from play. I'm not sure how strong that argument is, but that's what my first instinct when I'm trying to interpret Boom Blocks as a serious game.
No, you know what? I see it. I see that because he talks a lot about like one thing you'll hear Spielberg bring up is that he's really into arcade games. I mean,
Right.
he is more recently in Call of Duty, but he talks a lot about like Bubble Bobble, Galaga, Pac-Man. He even did an introduction for this is a strange side road I went down. Martin Amos's book on Space Invaders. Did you hear that this exists? I didn't even know this
No.
existed. Martin Amos, the novelist who would go on to write The Zone of Interest, the concentration camp movie that would be nominated for an Oscar, he wrote a book about how he got addicted to Space Invaders and how cool it is. And Steven Spielberg wrote the introduction to that book. One of the few introductions that Steven Spielberg has ever written for a book, basically. And I think the way Spielberg talks about Space Invaders in that game and how he talks about arcade games and everything, it's about basically being able to loop that feeling. How arcade games are basically the same, but you just keep getting the same amount of retries over and over and over for it. How you know that the game is going to be fixed for every credit you insert for the game. That's basically what Medal of Honor is, because Medal of Honor is just killing Nazis. It's just one thing. It's just killing Nazis over and over and over
True.
again. And Boom Blocks is, well, it's just booming blocks all over and over and over again. So, I don't know. There's something there.
Speaking of booming blocks over and over again, so Steven Spielberg, 2 games down. One was canceled, another one was Boom Blocks. He still has the 3rd game in his contract with EA that he has to do. So what does he pick for his 3rd and final project? It's Boom Blocks 2, baby. Boom Blocks something party. I don't even remember what it's called. And it's basically
Hey,
more Boom Blocks levels.
as you said in Steven Spielberg's director's chair, when you finish one movie, you just go back and make the same movie again with more actors. That's what Boom Blocks 2 is.
Yeah, so my main reading for this game is that it's a way to get out of a contract, but more charitably, I want to look at this. I think that in this game, it's a lot more focused on creating kind of mini games within the Boom Blocks framework, whereas the first Boom Blocks game is about just generally knocking down lots of blocks and basically doing an Angry Birds with it. In Boom Blocks Bash Party, I remembered the name. It's a
Ooh.
lot more like kind of mini games within the Boom Blocks framework. Like one of the major game modes is kind of a match 3 where you have all these different colored blocks, and if you get all 3 in a row touching each other, then they'll all disappear and they'll all fall down and reconfigure. So it's like using the same engine to make more focused kind of individual levels. And Spielberg is still a director here, so he has more say into the individual level design. And I feel like this is kind of a growth from him just thinking about a concept, and then after having worked out that concept throughout a whole game, he's like, okay, what else can I do with this? How can I be a more traditional level-based designer within Boom Blocks? And that's my reading of it. Yeah.
I, on the other hand, saw it as a way for him to get out of the contract, and I didn't even look at it.
That's
I
it.
have no
You had
take.
all that to
I
say
have
about
no
no.
take on this one. Yes, I have given complex takes on the other 2 games. I have not given any take on this one. It's just shitty Boom Blocks, basically.
Did you see a change in level design at all, or
No, I didn't really look at it, to be
okay?
honest.
I thought it was pretty different. It feels a lot more objective based, I guess, to me, instead of just score based. But
Okay.
that's just me, apparently.
I mean, the one thing I heard about the game was an interview Spielberg did, and he said, "Oh, we had a bunch of leftover ideas from Boom Blocks 1 that we were doing that we couldn't put in the game, and we were like, oh, might as well put it in 2." So I'm like, okay, this is just the outtakes, basically. That was my impression. Like, this was just all the shit that they didn't care about.
Yeah, so basically, out of his 3-game deal with EA to be directing all these different video games with whatever budget he needed, apparently, he just made Boom Blocks once and then Boom Blocks again. That's it. And that is Steven Spielberg's impact on the video game industry. One of the most famous film directors alive, multiple video games, and it basically comes down to Boom Blocks.
And EA was like, we're never going to trust an auteur again. And that's how they became the way they became today. There you go. The story.
This is why we only do Madden and FIFA. Come on, guys. Why do we let Spielberg over here?
State of the modern video game industry can be attributed to Boombox 2. We did it. We traced the lineage.
Blox 2 is the megalopolis of video games, if you really think about it.
It was the heaven's gate of video games. It just destroyed the industry. It was the blank check that they couldn't cash.
Do you have any closing thoughts on Spielberg? I gotta say, I don't think I mentioned this, but it was so hard to research Steven Spielberg's video games. Like, there was almost nothing out there about these games because nobody cares. When people talk to Spielberg, they only want to talk about his movies. So when you look him up and his video games, there's just almost nothing. I found a few news articles basically about their announcement because it was like novel and interesting. But when they actually came out, nobody really cared. So researching this was hard. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, same here. I didn't manage to dig very deep into it. Luckily, he doesn't have many games and he doesn't seem very proud of it. So it's okay. We can all just put it behind us.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to want to talk about him either, which is funny.
Yeah. Any recommendations?
Yeah, recommendations. If you're a child in 2009, I recommend Boomblocks. Otherwise, I think you can stay pretty clear of these.
Okay. And personally, I would like to recommend, as a video game, the movie The Adventures of Tintin, directed by Steven Spielberg. There we go. Check it out. Great movie. It's about no clipping, basically.
Yeah, I guess we could recommend movies if we wanted to. Nothing's stopping us.
We just recommend all his movies. Let's go through his Wikipedia
I wouldn't
page.
do that.
It's
I'm not
everyone.
recommending all his movies. Have
Okay.
you seen Ready Player One? No, you haven't. Okay.
I recommend
Okay.
Ready Player One. I haven't seen it, but I think it'll be fun if you want to learn about Steven Spielberg's video games.
Yeah, really lots of big 80s video game history right there. It's basically a textbook.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, I recommended Steven Spielberg. It was a great idea. I'm really glad I did it. And now it's Galvin's turn. Here we go.
This might be that. Just want to mention, in case you don't read like the research, the release dates or like far off in the future. This might be the episode we spent the longest amount of time on, and not because we were researching Spielberg or anything, just because we were preoccupied with other things. So, thank you, Steven Spielberg, for giving us this opportunity to look so deeply into your past. Anyway, so it took us over a month to do Steven Spielberg. How about we do a longer person with a longer gameography? Isn't that a great idea?
Yeah.
This will be our first two-parter, I think. Yeah, this will be our first two-parter. And I'm not even going to try front. I just want to ask you the question. Do you know about the game 80 Days? It was released for iOS.
Yes, I know about 80 Days. I've played it.
Oh, you've played it? Have you ever played other games by the same company?
I think Overboard is also...
Overboard's also by the same
a little
company.
Bit okay.
Yeah. What was interesting to me was that I grew up with I was kind of like an iPad kid growing up, and I never played these games, but I always saw them, and they were always at the top of the App Store because I guess they were just so good. And then later on, when I discovered interactive fiction, I learned that they were actually one of the few profitable, sold for commercial profit interactive fiction games that weren't like visual novels or like tied into other types of games. This was something that grew out of the independent interactive fiction games scene, and it was something that one of the only ones that made money. And all of it stemmed back to a man named John Ingold. John Ingold is the founder of Inkle Studios, which made all these games. He co-created the engine that they ran on. He co-wrote pretty much all the games we just mentioned, Overboard, 80 Days, and a bunch of other stuff. And he's still working today. But next episode, we're not going to be playing any of those games. We're going to be playing his initial offerings, his text parser games that he created when he was starting out from 18 years old to, I think 2012 or something like that, when he went into the commercial work. What's interesting about these is that they're all free and nobody talks about them because they're text parser games and nobody cares. But he did these because he loved text adventure games so much, and he wrote them as a kid, and he did this for a decade without expecting any kind of profit, until eventually he built up a reputation strong enough to get hired at PlayStation, where he made a few games that nobody ever released. I think they were all canceled, and then he went on to found Inkle Studios, which he then got popular by. And should be worth mentioning now, all the Inkle games, everything we just mentioned, 80 Days, Overboard, all that stuff is all choice-based interactive fiction. It's not text parser-based. So something happened in between the switch to parser and choice-based interactive fiction, and he never went back to text parsers. We're just going to be playing all the text parser games for next episode. And then that's part one, and part two after that is we're going to be playing all the post-parser games, including all the Inkle games. And do you have any thoughts about this offer?
I'm looking forward to it. I liked 80 Days. I kind of played that one when I was in high school, I think. And Overboard, I also kind of enjoyed. I think that one is like a game that you can win or lose, whereas 80 Days is kind of less so. And I couldn't figure out how to beat Overboard. I think it's kind of like a mystery, murder mystery. I honestly don't remember it very much, but yeah, I'm excited to try these out. I'm learning that you really are interested in these interactive fiction games. So yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's not a phase, Dad. Also, um, it a lot of these came it's interesting to me because a lot of these come from, like, interactive fiction roots. Like, he grew up playing Infocom games, and some of these are, like, tributes to old Infocom games that he as far as I can tell, he has not mentioned while making Inco games.
Okay, sounds good. I honestly don't know very much about him, but I'm very much willing to play these games. I really like 80 Days, so let's see what's going on.
Okay, and as always, I'm Galvin.
And I'm Author Function. We're just ending it there. Bye.